my goal tonight was to focus on really this idea of, and this really applies to just kind of any theory in the product world, which is there's the difference between the theory and the application of that theory in the real world. So how have I been a part of bringing something like the product operating model into the real world and talk about some examples? Would love to hear from other people that maybe have been in organizations that have, and again, it might not have been described to you as specifically the product model or the product operating model, but some of the principles or some of the things that I'm going to talk about might feel familiar. So again, don't feel like if you've never kind of been in a place that was explicitly or didn't explicitly talk about it in this way, doesn't mean you weren't kind of adopting or leveraging some of this stuff. Both of the examples I'm going to talk about tonight, neither one kind of explicitly said we're going to adopt the product operating model, and that is how we're going to go forward with how we approach building products. But what I definitely want to do is focus on a couple key areas within the model and thinking about, you know, what are the things that I think are probably most important for people in agile practice, in companies, software companies, in organizations that are building that type of a product to be thinking about. And what have I seen out of the product operating model drive some great results? So, as I said, I was going to share a little bit about me, a little bit more about my background. So, background in product management leadership, have many times been kind of the first product person in an organization. So, hey, we're a startup. Founders finally feel like, you know what? I need someone that can come in and actually take that off my plate. I've been that guy. Product growth, so definitely can lean in on more of the go-to-market side and drive actual growth in the business through either product experimentation, onboarding, things like that. Product support and customer success. I actually spent a ton of time, building customer success organizations and within that owning the product support side of the house to really understand kind of customer empathy and understanding how to ensure you're driving value for your customers in a product. I've already said this, startups have done quite a few startups in e-commerce, in SaaS software, and very often in the like within the first 10 people in an organization. So very early in these organizations and getting to like see them grow. Some of the vertical stuff I worked in marketing technology, email infrastructure, and then my work with Natalie working in the HR technology recruiting space. And last but not least, have definitely done quite a bit in AI. A lot of the early AI stuff I got involved in was what I would call almost the more hardcore AI, where you're building intelligence, where you're actually building things to do intelligent decisioning. Don't get me wrong, I think generative is way more kind of exciting to the average person. Decisioning can be significantly a bigger lift to create out of the ether. So a little bit more about me. And then, as I mentioned earlier, kind of from the consulting side, I have a business productsparkservices.com you can check out or find me on LinkedIn. I am always more than happy to talk to people. I've actually had a number of people from this group reach out to me and have had some great conversations. So feel free to ping me, reach out to me. Love making new connections and any way I could potentially help you or you could help me, would really appreciate that as well. All right, so I mentioned a little bit ago that I wanted to focus on a few things. One, kind of the product operating model principles, and then talk a little bit about collaboration, and then talk at the end, because I think this is kind of a fun topic, kind of perceptions and misconceptions. And the last part is really less about specifics for the product operating model. I think it's going to we can get into kind of some of the agile misconceptions and misperceptions, as well as other aspects of kind of working in technology and trying to build the right thing for people. All right. So jumping in, what is the product operating model? And I guess out of curiosity, right, is anyone here like completely unfamiliar, never heard of it, have no idea what this is, which is totally okay. I'm just curious, kind of, okay. So RJ, you're saying you're not so sure or not familiar. And again, like I said in the beginning, the idea here is none of this is really kind of like left field. It's mostly really practical stuff. And it may be things that you've had the pleasure of working in an organization that they're working that way. Your startup might actually work this way, but it's something that you have to, again, I'm curious to just kind of understand where people are. I appreciate RJ you for being not shy and sharing that fact. Okay, so starting with one of the godfathers of the product operating model, Marty Kagan. He is a product person from Silicon Valley, has a consulting company, and has written a bunch of books about the product operating model, hundreds and hundreds of pages about the product operating model. He lives it, breathes it, and for the most part, he has become such a big proponent of it because of what he's seen in those businesses. Those that are operating with this in mind have been more successful. So the idea is in the product model, product teams exist to solve hard problems for your customers and for your business in ways your customers love yet work for the business. It's a mouthful. I literally cut the quote down to this, but I think I can probably do a little bit better job of explaining what he means. So, from my perspective, the product operating model is all about building products that are solving a real customer problem that actually needs to be solved. I've been in organizations where we've built things and the customers don't adopt it and it doesn't go anywhere and we're all left scratching our heads. But the real, at the foundational level, it was a problem that they need to have solved. So it's like you can solve things, that's great, but if it's not something that customers care about, it's not the kind of worth your time. And then the solution has to make a material impact to the customer, whether it's kind of a realized business gain or even a personal outcome in a product that is maybe more consumer oriented. It's got to do something real, right? Drive revenue, increase their speed and agility in their business, drive cost savings, or if you're a regular kind of consumer, some joy, like bring happiness to me with your product. And then the other side of that is the product must be built and maintained within the business constraints of your company. So there's many times where I've been in organizations where a solution is proposed, but the reality of that solution cannot meet the business constraints of the company. It's too expensive. We don't have the right resources. The ongoing maintenance of that becomes cost prohibitive. That is the reality. And that is kind of the challenge with the product operating model. It's like you got to solve the right problem, it's got to drive real results, but you got to do it with the constraints that you're living in. Because if you can't do that, your business becomes non-viable, even if you're doing all the other things right, bringing joy and bringing outcomes. It has to have that balance. So who owns that balance in a business, right? And really in the product operating model, it is owned by the product manager. Their primary job is this idea of continuous product discovery. So one thing to keep in mind, I think people hear product discovery and you might think of 10 different things. It could be customer interviews. It could be researching competitive products. It could be prototyping and building things that aren't fully baked, but you can put that in front of a customer and get feedback. It's all of those things that get kind of bucketed into product discovery, but it's a continual thing. You're never done. You're always learning, which I think for the agile folks here, like, yeah, you need to be continually discovering to be feeding that pipeline of continuous delivery and continuous value creation and all of that. And then, that person, the person in that role, they need to make sure the problems that matter are getting prioritized, right? We're not creating solutions for things that people don't care about. We are building things that are going to delight our customers. These things are driving real value. They're doing what we intend them to do. And then being in that position, you were very much mindful of what is within the practical limitations of the business I operate in. Like, what can we actually do? I think my extreme example of this is transportation. Hey, an amazing solution to transportation would be build a machine that we can teleport ourselves to wherever we want to go. It would absolutely solve the problem. It's a really meaningful problem, and it would do all the things I talked about, but is completely impractical in any business today. There's just not a practical, and beyond just the fact that it's not possible. You get the idea. So, kind of jumping into a real world example of mine is I was at a company, Monetate. Give you a little bit of background on Monetate. Monetate was a SaaS company, mostly focused on e-commerce businesses. And really, its goal was to, I guess its assumption was if you give customers a better experience, and our way of providing a better experience was a more personalized experience, like understanding what they've done before, understanding what they're doing right now in their web experience, and using that information to provide a better experience. And the original product was basically an A/B testing tool because you needed, for your experimentations of finding the right things to do for people. That was like one key component. And the other key component was a targeting engine where I could say, hey, for people in the Northeast, in the wintertime, show them this set of products. Or, hey, you're in Florida in the wintertime, show you a different set of products because that made practical sense. And then you would be able to test that and see what kind of impact that had on your business. Problem was, and getting back to kind of the core of the principles, which is you need to be solving like the real problem. Basically, all we had done is create a new problem. It wasn't scalable. You would experiment all the time and often not find things that worked. So it actually became almost a frustrating thing. So it wasn't actually solving the problem. So the solution was lacking. It just so happened that AI started to become something that was much more kind of business viable. And it was also convenient that we had a great set of engineers and we had some PhD level data scientists on the team. So we actually had the resources to start to build our own algorithms and be able to kind of use context of customers, like where they are, what they've done, any other attributes we could get our hands on, to not give someone the ability to manually give them a more personalized experience. We were able to use that to build an engine that would continuously learn and adapt based on when you put a specific experience in front of them, what their behavior was. A much more meaningful solution, a real solution to their problem. And then on the continuous kind of prototyping side or discovery side, I personally spent tons and tons of time on the road taking prototypes or kind of things we would spin up just for a particular customer because we didn't quite have it fully baked to do it at scale and work directly with customers. And again, why that's so important and why that was so important for that product and for me was what we learned was, yes, they loved the fact that they no longer had to manually do so much stuff. Now there was an engine behind it that was continually taking the learnings and kind of immediately using those learnings and learning itself of what's the best thing to do for what types of customers and all those things, their biggest problem was it can't be a black box, which, the engineers all excited, like, oh my God, we've solved the big problem. But because no one I talked to was comfortable with just letting it go, I need to understand not necessarily what decision was made for Natalie today or for me today, but what is it? You need to take away that opacity and give me some insight into, well, what is it doing? Is it working? And that basically took the product from what was pretty close to being kind of in market viable to another several months to kind of figure out how that was. But we learned very kind of aggressively, like we can't just do this without getting their feedback. So again, backing back to the principles, right? Now we had really kind of built a solution that was solving the right problem in a way that was going to delight these customers. That solution did not come from a sales conversation. It didn't come from a customer success conversation. It came from understanding our customers, working within the product organization to come up with this solution. And there really wasn't another solution we could look to even kind of model ourselves off of. We built this thing from the ground up. I mean, great experience, but again, I think it illustrates that business Monetate was doing just fine financially, even when it didn't solve a great problem for the customer. Once it did, it kind of took everything to that next level, and it did reinforce in me kind of that need of that continuous kind of discovery and how that drove us to a product that was way more viable in market. So I'm curious, you know, what I teed up earlier, anyone here kind of have experience in organizations that are either, hey, we're going to adopt a more of a product operating approach. I think another way to think of this would be basically product teams and Scrum teams have pretty much the autonomy to come up with their own solutions. Like they're not just kind of delivering items on a roadmap. There might be problems on a roadmap or things that they need to solve, but the solutioning is happening within those teams, and they really get to own it. And then anyone that has been in that had that experience, what went well and maybe what didn't go well. Because I think the other side of this is, just implementing something like this or trying to adopt this approach, it's not always going to work the way you expect. And curious to hear a little bit of that. Anyone brave enough? Anyone have that kind of experience?
I'm wondering, maybe I can ask Fernando,
Oh, we got a raise.
what,
I see a raised hand.
who? Oh, Anand. Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead, Anand, and then I will ask Fernando a question.
Absolutely. Yeah. First of all, good evening, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity. So, yeah, like Brett, great point, right? I think the appetite is there pretty much. The appetite is there across board, including the large enterprises to mid-level companies. But like you said, there are also challenges, right? They want to form the teams that are able to self-organize, prioritize things that you know that they think are going to solve the problem for the customer with their ability to interact with the customer and so on and so forth, right? As opposed to running with a plan that is already there, and following the milestones and delivering the milestones on it. So the challenge is with the enterprises I have seen is like there are segregated teams, right? You have business, you have technology, and you also have vendors. And that being the challenge, there are some contractual obligations wherein they have certain dates to do things like, very specific specialist things like, testing, let's say, testing contract with a vendor that goes from this date to this date. So they are like constrained with that kind of setup that is there for forever. I mean, like for quite some time now, right? And the greater challenge now is to break those things and move with a more like cross-functional team. Building a cross-functional team, I have seen as the biggest challenge that these organizations are going through. Even though they think it is a cross-functional team, it is a team of 50, 60, 70 people, right? And suddenly someone comes, the director says, yes, we have a cross-functional team. Yes, but there is one person speaking for testing. Everybody else has to go through that person. There's one person speaking for a particular, set of technologies. Like, somebody codes middleware. There's one person speaking up for middleware. So, those are the challenges that I have seen. I'm sure, like, a lot of us have seen the similar kind of challenges, but just wanted to throw out these things. The other thing is to do with the prioritization, right? Prioritization, what I have seen, at least in my recent engagement, was um, see, the business and technology, they it's that misunderstanding between, hey, what is driving this, what is the purpose versus um, what are the minimal things that we need to actually have in place to deliver the quickest value, right? So there is always this platform change, technology change. We are moving from one platform to the other, things like that. um, and they quickly miss the purpose of the whole change, why that is happening. So the technology director has a very different list of priorities versus the business lead who is actually leading and funding the. So there is a gap, and that I see as one big gap. And many organizations are trying to kind of bring in a bridge between these two, but that's where the main challenge lies. I feel.
Thank you so much, Anand. It is, I can recognize perfectly well when we work with enterprise customers, the atmosphere you are describing, but it is so different from a smaller startup where everyone is so much closer to the customer. And I was wondering, Fernando, you also work with larger organizations. How many layers would you say separate the development team from the actual user of the product or from the customer? From your experience?
Yes, I work mainly with large Fortune 100, 200, the smallest might have been a Fortune 500. So I wouldn't count layers of separation. I will count walls of separation
Walls.
between
Okay.
a user and the developers, in, at least in those organizations. And unfortunately, I don't have direct experience on working with this model. Um, so I did work in startups many years ago, and yeah, I can relate to these ideas. But in these large organizations, what I see that even if someone liked the idea, I've seen intentions of moving from product to product, for example, but that resulted in some realignments, maybe with luck, some realignments in different value streams, but not much change regarding the impact to the customer.
Yeah. What I would say, even in environments like startups where you would think this would be relatively easy, And there are plenty of other things that get in the way, whether it is a founding team that they believe they should own those decisions and kind of top down everything, even though they, as you mentioned, Natalie, you have a team of people that are very intimate with the customer, the problems that they're solving, and the technology that's being used, all of the kind of ingredients to create a better recipe. You still run into those situations. So even small, this isn't always the easiest thing to do. But the one thing that I think about kind of anyone here that is in an organization today, the one thing I would say is this is when, to me, this is an opportunity to kind of pivot back to like company vision and what companies set out to do, because really this is the essence of fulfilling that vision. This is a pathway to doing that. And all the bureaucracy and all the layers and all those things, in many cases, are all of the hindrances to being able to do that. But you're right, it's not the most practical thing in a lot of these organizations, but I do think there are ways to get closer to ensure you're delivering more value for the customer, because there are big organizations that do pull this off. Like there are organizations that teams that are building, products that are going to impact millions and millions of people. They're not huge teams. They have, they are cross-functional, where they have kind of all of the key components involved in the process, and that does happen. And some of these are massive, massive companies, but you're right, it's not easy for all these organizations to kind of do that. But like I said, that those key principles of making sure you're solving the right problems for the customer, I feel like those are a little bit harder to argue at any level, right? Those are things I'm very comfortable with. I'm having a conversation with the CEO, like that's the kind of conversation I want to have. Like, are you actually solving the problems that your customers need you to solve? And are you solving them in a way that is meaningful and impactful? Because like I said, there's plenty of businesses that do things, even solve problems, but they don't do it in the most meaningful way, and they still kind of live on, which is kind of amazing to me. But the ones that do really, really well do all these things. So even if they didn't one day decree, we're going to follow the product operating model, these principles are likely kind of innate in that organization. And that's really what I'm pushing for, is people to really think about the things, because anyone here can influence, right? What you're working on. Everyone has a voice. Whatever you are involved in from a building perspective, even if you're not the lead developer or the product manager, you have that voice. And I think that's something that we all should feel comfortable exercising, because companies set out with a mission and a vision, and if they're letting that down, that's probably one of the most powerful things you can reinforce is, hey, I think we can do better, and our customers deserve better. And that's, again, not easy in a lot of organizations, but that's the idea. Anyone else have any kind of example from real world on this one, or I'll jump into the next topic.
Um, you can easily delay an answer to this, but I've been listening to the conversation so far, and it sounds as if the focus is pretty much on new product and new development. So I recently completed a job with an insurance company where the product was already well established, and your question about how many layers between the customer and the development team kind of struck a nerve, because the answer was 5. And the shortcut to get back to what the customer could use was through the customer service thing. So the insurance company was very pleased that it had this highly developed software product that it put out for everybody to use. And the thing that made it work was the customer response.
Right.
So, it struck me as odd that there was this superstructure of corporate hierarchy whose job theoretically was to make this easier, and all they did was fiddle with things. So the dev team was far removed from the actual product users. Now, to be fair to them, and not to cast aspersion, but to explain further, part of the problem was the regulatory stuff.
Right.
They had to meet certain laws for the state and the federal government, and they also had to meet certain insurance industry standards. So this was not a simple product, and it wasn't just something where you fire and forget. The regulations were changing, not necessarily hourly, but frequently. And keeping track of this was a challenge.
Yeah, I believe it. And that's it. And I'll talk towards the end, I'll get more into, I think, some of the real kind of uh, practical things around some of these ideas, like where it works or where it doesn't work. That you mentioned one of the big examples, anything that is highly regulated, or there are just kind of hoops you need to jump through, which will be very difficult to create a kind of continuous delivery of value environment. Like you need to respect kind of the industry you are in. All right. So, and I think everyone started to kind of get into the next topic, which is collaboration. And to me, this is the biggest one is solving the right problems that people care about and driving value. And that sounds so simple and that everyone should do it. And I will tell you that there are tons and tons of companies that don't do that. They don't actually provide meaningful value for their customers and they're still able to exist. Or there's tons and tons of failed businesses because they never were able to actually do that. They built cool things that look cool. It didn't actually have that kind of material impact for the customer. So collaboration. So first part of collaboration is this notion within the product operating model of an empowered product team. And we were just talking about cross-functional. I like this version of it. I'll talk about kind of the more the Marty Kagan specific product version of it, but they are empowered and staffed with smart people. Again, smart is not necessarily kind of like IQ smart, but they know their particular stuff. They can provide real value in the solutioning of what you're building. And you cover all the range, right? You need to have people that understand the customer intimately. You need to have people that are very deep in the technology. You need people that understand where that comes together from a UI UX perspective or the design perspective, like what that interface or how they're going to interact with it. You need those people to come up with the best possible solutions. And they are actually empowered, right? They're not just given as you mentioned, a nod around like a list of things to deliver and you need to hit these milestones. No, it's here's a really kind of tasty problem that our customers have. Like figure out that solution. You have the autonomy to do that. We've given you the tool set and the support. Like if it's hard and it's going to take more time, like they're given that ability to do that. They are empowered to provide really good solutions because those are going to drive the most value for the business and the customers that are participating with that business. And then the tricky part, it's like with power there is other problems. So and I feel this is being, in the product management world, you give that power to those people and you also give them the accountability of that power. So they need to be well. I also find this to be one of the most motivating things about it. It's like, oh, I don't just build something, ship it, and now it's marketing. Saying, no, you own it. You own it from the kind of the nucleus of the idea, its inception through adoption and refinement and all of those things. This team, and if you are accountable and if you care about it, you're going to do a better job at building the product. You're going to do a better job at making sure it's enabled the right way and you've given the marketing and salespeople the right tools to go out and drive this. It really is the right kind of motivating thing to get better products in market. Because I will tell you, right, in situations where you're not empowered and you're just delivering feature after feature after feature, it's not very motivating. Not very motivating to a product person, not very motivating to an engineer, not very motivating to someone that's kind of running the stand-ups and making sure, kind of all the agile ceremonies are happening. It's kind of, it ends up being these very kind of like soft high fives of each other. Like we accomplished a bunch of stuff without the meaning. And this is really adding that meaning into the process and driving, I think, real pride in the work that you do. So kind of some of the things when I think about collaborating in the product operating model, there are some key people that should always be involved in this, the product manager, development lead, product designer. These are the people that kind of are key, not saying that the team is not more than that, but this is, and again, kind of the more pure product operating model. These are kind of like must-haves. Although I will tell you, in many cases, I've been both product manager and product designer. So there are times where you just don't have that luxury. But these are the people that are kind of the core, right, of this solutioning team. And then it really is this idea that the best solutions are going to come from the combining of all those skills and knowledge and the entire product team. Sometimes a great solution comes from an engineer. Sometimes a great solution comes from a customer service rep. But that person kind of needs that translated, and that's what the product manager and the designer and the developers can do. And then for the collaboration to be successful, right, that they have to have a shared understanding of the customer and the business. You need to know the motivation, you need to know the pain to create these great solutions. So, kind of my take on this, or what I think really drives some great collaboration when you're building products, and sometimes these products are refinements of existing ones. It's not always net new products. I want to be clear about that. But you need, even if there's 6 layers, right, separating the developer from the customers, you need to bring that information. Either it's data, it's surveys, I used to invite customers to speak at a software company, like come in and talk to us, like whatever you need to do, because it is absolutely vital to build good products. You need to have that. And everyone needs to understand the goals of the business. Like, what are we trying to do as a business? What is that mission and vision? Like, how do I think about what I'm doing and how that aligns to how we're kind of thinking about the solutions to these problems we're solving for our customers? And then another big thing, big rule of thumb for me, anytime you're going to have a group discussion around something and there's like material to be presented, I have always found it is much better to have that group pre-read it, get it in their hands before the meeting, and really hold them accountable, right? Hey, if you're asking questions that are answered in this document, you did not do your job. You are not coming prepared. You are not kind of an active participant in this. On the flip side of that, if everyone's doing their job and everyone's being kind of active in that, everyone should feel encouraged to contribute, right? You want to create an environment where everybody has a voice. There is no pecking order of that voice. There is no kind of like, um, you're not going to have someone talk down to someone else. Like you want to create an environment that everyone feels confident in expressing, because very often the best ideas are going to come from those unexpected sources. So I really encourage that, but I also really encourage, don't show up to my meeting if I created a document with giving you plenty of time and notice to take some time and review it, and you haven't done it. Unacceptable. Like that is the other side of it. Like holding people accountable. You want to have good collaboration, because I'm going to work my ass off to bring them customer information. Even if I can't get them directly in front of a customer, I'm going to be able to do that. I'm going to do everything I can to ensure everyone on the team has that same level of understanding, so everyone can really contribute to that solution. And that is going to drive significantly better. Not only is it going to drive better ideation and solutions, everyone will be much more vested in that people will feel way more connected to it because they had a part in it. If you don't play a part in things, again, it gets back to like, oh, well, why aren't these businesses being more successful? But we're cranking out tons of stuff where like, hey, pat each other on the back. We're delivering a lot of things, but we're not necessarily delivering the right things, and we're not getting the teams vested in that process. So there's not a lot of satisfaction. And I think everyone, I think the reality is we are human beings, and we want to be working on things that are meaningful. We want to be motivated. We want to feel like we are kind of contributing in a way that's actually impactful and meaningful for the customer and our life. I want to go home and at the end of the day and say, that was so awesome because I taught you. And that's the thing, right? I think part of this is also making sure it doesn't end once that product has shipped, right? One of the biggest things you can do to an organization is get that customer voice coming in after you've done all that work and hear what they say about it, hear how that's changed their kind of way they work. I worked at a company where the name of our company became a verb in these organizations. Like, oh, we monetated that. That was literally what our customers would say. And that was something that, it changed the attitude towards what we were doing. And that's pretty powerful stuff. Like we are, like I said, human beings that kind of the emotional side can drive some real impact to us and our work and what we do. So totally different example, but wanted to talk about collaboration, specifically when you're solving kind of a complex thing. So Sidekick, give you a little background on this company. They are in the creator influencer marketing space. So this is a software product designed for brands like Nike, for example, to find creators to work with. So it had a giant database and of kind of social creators and measuring the impact that they had. So they did a post on, they did a sponsored post for us. How many people saw it? How many people liked it? How many people kind of reshared it? That kind of expanded beyond to actually using it, driving real e-commerce, so kind of affiliate marketing and all those things got incorporated into this platform. But the biggest kind of customer problem they hadn't solved yet was this idea of workflow. So what most of these folks were doing was they would go to Sidekick and find the creators they wanted to work with. They would maybe even kind of communicate with them through Sidekick through an email. But what they didn't do was manage kind of the day-to-day operations of it. They literally managed it in a spreadsheet. That was what they did. So really the problem that we were solving for these customers was scale. They wanted to have successful collaborations with these creators and drive real impact in their business. So we needed to create the glue, kind of take them out of their spreadsheets and get them into the product, and using the product and all the automation we can create and all the kind of things that you can do in software that are very difficult to do when you're manually entering everything into a spreadsheet. So from a collaboration perspective, it did actually start with that core team. I had a lead designer, I had the lead developer involved, and myself. And even that, right, even that core group, we would basically kind of, I would pair off maybe with the lead developer, I would pair off with the lead designer, and we would kind of iterate on things, but get them to a point where it made sense to bring back that core team together, whatever we could share in advance, making sure people were coming to those meetings prepared. That was such a key because this was a massive thing. This was kind of all the pieces of this was a year's worth of work easily, kind of all of the components. And obviously we wanted to get the stuff that was going to be the most impactful in front of the customers sooner, but we knew it was kind of a massive list to build something that was really going to achieve the goal. So some of the things I wanted to share about some of those collaborations was one, We did. We made sure we were prepared before we came to that. When the developer kind of laid out the architecture for the solution, making sure all of that person's team members got in front of that documentation early and we're kind of feeding back into it. So when we had, meetings were very productive because we weren't spending time going over a document. We were spending time answering the questions, solutioning, solving those things. That was really the key to the collaboration. And then the other side of the collaboration that I would say was really kind of key was those customer collaborations. So kind of the discovery piece, but also keeping kind of customers that you knew were kind of real proponents of this solution or had kind of the more acute need for the solution directly involved and collaborating with those and bringing that feedback directly in, or when it made sense. There was definitely times where some I would do kind of one or two customer webinars and invite the developers to see what questions they like, what questions did the customer ask. But that collaboration across the internal teams and again that accountability to coming to these meetings prepared drove way better conversations, made things way more productive. And so when we actually came time to deliver real product features, everyone was on the same page. There wasn't a ton of kind of lack of understanding, and it also made it easier for I think the other thing I would say on that collaboration is we didn't always kind of come to a final solution. We gave room for the engineers to experiment a little bit, try different things. Like that was another key piece of it, which can be tough in organizations that are very focused on hitting milestones and getting features out and all those things. Like for something like this, to build the right thing, that autonomy and that flexibility and those collaborations and when you're accountable to each other, you also trust each other more. So people are much more willing to get feedback from people that they feel are accountable to them and can trust versus kind of someone out of nowhere throwing ideas at the wall because they like to hear themselves speak. And I think we've probably all ran into those people. And sometimes those voices are really loud and you actually kind of have to do that. But that to me, it was something that was massive, right? Kind of daunting in the scale of this thing and how much work it was going to be. But having that core team collaborating and then bringing in the other pieces when we felt we were at a level that we still needed input, it wasn't baked, right? We didn't want to take something fully baked and get it shot down, right? We wanted to be respectful of their time, give them the information to come back with real kind of quality opinions and use all that to create a better solution. And it was a great solution. I mean, literally, that solution, which kind of morphed into kind of a slightly different thing, basically helped that company go from closing 15K a year deals to 250K a year deals. Like it was that kind of impactful because it solved the real problem in a way that was going to have a material impact on those customers' business. Now they could grow their creator marketing programs. They didn't have that ability. They could do it. They could do creator marketing. We weren't letting them down in that perspective. We were just not giving them the ability to do it well. And now we had given them that ability. So with that, I am sure some people have some examples of some really highly successful collaborations and or any like what recommendations do you have other than some of the ones that I shared? Like what do you recommend to drive quality collaboration in your own environments?
So before anyone gets brave enough to talk, I have a question. I have a question, Brett.
Sure.
Because Amruta is here, who is a UX designer, while we develop Mr. Simon, I do understand how important it is to really understand the flow of your user. So how do you see what is the role of a UX designer in all of this collaboration that you're describing, ideally?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, again, product designer, UX designer, to me, they are in many cases the same thing. That, kind of historically, they were always folks were referred to as UX, UI designers, and then all of a sudden they became product designers. For the most part, those are the people that I would absolutely have included in that process from the beginning. I think it's part of the collaboration as well. Like who is in the room when you're at the beginning? And it really is kind of those three people because they bring the core elements of that story. Like what should the interaction look like? What's important about those interactions? Kind of the product side, which is more kind of the business justification and why are we doing this and why do the customers care? And then the development side, which is the how and what can we do with the technologies that we have to deliver that ultimate solution. To me, that is the kind of core group. And doesn't mean that there aren't other pieces of or other people that get involved. That is an area but I do think there's a lot of the kind of especially in software, right? I think there's a lot of the actual what's going to be put into the product happening between those three people. And often those folks have additional kind of team members that they're going to bring in at the right time or they're going to get up to speed. And that gets back to the accountability and, making sure that everyone on the team is informing everyone else on the team in the best way we can. So when everyone gets together, and you do want to have things where you get everyone together, we're all on the same page. You're not continually kind of starting from scratch. So
If you described situations where product manager was also designer,
yeah,
but also situations where these are two different people, right?
exactly.
So if let's say it is two different people, how do you ensure what needs to be done so that the UX designer knows intimately the user processes and can be an expert on the team on behalf of the user when you also have a product manager?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you have both, right, I think there is a bit of a divide and conquer thing, but there is kind of that Venn diagram, right? I think both folks should understand the customer to a certain degree, but someone on the design side probably is going to go way deeper into looking at things like how they're interacting with the product today, how other businesses have created that user experience and what that looks like, and kind of doing a lot of research from that perspective, which informs what I would be doing on the product management side, but that wouldn't be necessarily something I would, in many cases, right? If I'm doing both, I'm probably not able to spend as much time doing that research, that vital kind of research. And then I mean, when you really have, I feel like coming from startups, it's a luxury when you can have actual designers doing the research side and really kind of being able to, do experimentation and do tests to kind of try to see what is a better solution. But again, I think those are things that if you only have one person, you try to do as much of that as you can. If you have both, I do feel like and that comes back to why I think the product operating model focuses on having those as distinct roles, because there is enough stuff within each of those two worlds that it's very hard to kind of do it to the level it can be if you don't have that divided.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So let me ask you guys, with the previous piece of discussion, we talked about unhappy experiences. Now let's talk about happy experiences that we have. Who can give a good example of, hey, this is how we collaborate, and as a result, this was the case when we produced some product features or products that are actually used by customers and they are happy about it, and I know for sure. Who can talk to that?
If I can throw, like,
Mhm.
the other side of things. I know, like, the last thing that I presented was
Yep.
like you said, the not the ideal scenario, right? But
Mhm.
just building on what Brett said, about the user experience and product management, and two different people versus one person, things
Mm-hmm.
like that, right? One thing I want to just add is, I have seen this the organization where I am coaching right now. They have something called Experience Lab, right? There's a chapter that specializes, focuses on user experience, and they have the like luxury of having a few people do the research and get to know intimately about different design techniques, different experience techniques in terms of building apps or
Best
building web.
practices, right? You mean?
Oh, yeah. So they have that luxury, and I have seen this organization of chapters, and then your tribe squads, things like that, collaborating with these specific chapters, who have that specific knowledge, the specialist knowledge, right? And taking advantage of those experience labs, and it's a very quick turnaround to get feedback about like a idea to a concept to like a prototype, and that's what these experience labs are I have seen doing. So that's a great collaboration happening between squads and chapters, specifically working researching on a specific skill.
Sounds like an interesting idea. Have you heard about Experience Labs, Brett?
I have. I mean, I think kind of historically, I can recall being in organizations that had that luxury to do that kind of thing, whether it was, sometimes it was something that would be set up for a couple weeks, right? It wasn't something ongoing, but they were able to kind of put something together and do that. And it's great, right? I mean, I think those are awesome things, and there's no reason that it isn't helpful to creating the best solution. I think coming back to within the constraints of the business, many businesses don't have that luxury. So it's still like, hey, we want to, sometimes it's what the person thinks is best, and we all agree, and we put that forward. I mean, ultimately, we were going to get the feedback from, do these customers pay for the product? Do they stay with the product? Do they use the product? See, you are ultimately going to get that feedback, but it's great when you can get it before you ship, because it can really make a difference in having something hit the ground running versus, oh my goodness, I don't know what happened. We need to rethink some things. It's not doing what we expected to do.
So, if I may, RJ, if you would be willing to share a little bit, you come from a smaller organization. I expect your company to be more successful in terms of knowing better the user needs and the business needs. What can you share on that front?
Well, you're certainly correct. It's a bit on the smaller side. We're right around 100 people, but just off the top of my head, I can recall a situation where, customers are obviously important, but we also have other stakeholders we have to keep in mind. I work in a highly regulated industry, and so we have legal as a key stakeholder that we need to work with. And recently, we had a new feature in development. I have to be a little cagey about the details, where while we were working on it, we realized there might be some legal implications for the work that we were doing. And we ended up having a sit-down conversation with our company attorney, as well as a few of our developers and myself, in order to facilitate a compromise that would meet all these requirements while also being technically feasible. And it was a really pleasant conversation. I got to say, it's one of the better experiences I've had at my startup.
So, are you saying that the person representing the legal or the compliance who knows that who is a subject matter on that is to some extent part of the team?
Absolutely, but also, they kind of come in with their own specific needs in a way similar to how a customer does, even though they're obviously getting paid by us. They're not,
Mm-hmm.
buying things from us.
Internal user.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Who else would like to share some positive experiences of collaborating to develop exciting products or features? Anyone? Or is everyone else really, really unlucky?
Well, I have a little story. While everybody else is trying to figure out something else to say nice. I worked on a small project with a clinic that was coordinating its electronic health records with a large regional hospital. And the ambition was to get inside the data transfer so a patient record could go from the clinic side, the doctor's office basically, to the hospital side. And the hospital was creating its own fortress, so it was not allowing anybody in. I figured out a little workaround so that instead of sending actual data transfers, they could send a PDF file from the doctor's office to the patient record in the hospital. And I wondered how this little modest piece of effort was helping anybody. Doctor came in the next day, was so excited. Oh, it worked, it worked. We had a mother come in and she did not have to have a superfluous needle stick, because the state of New Jersey has laws about pregnant women delivering babies getting certain set of medications, and she had already had it, so she didn't need it again. So that was a pretty successful adventure.
Thank you. That's a good story with a happy ending. Anyone else has a good story with a happy ending, guys? I hope it's not all that sad, right? Lilia, any great story you can share where you know that you developed together with a team a great feature of a great product? You know that because people use it and business also is happy?
Unfortunately, I wasn't part of the product development. I was more on operation side. So I had the product after that, when it's well developed and well put in the production, and my team was just supported this.
Good. So you were more or less the internal user who received the product from the team?
It's not the internal user, but we support like operation. We support the user was the company. I mean, everybody was across the enterprise used the product.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it was vendor product, but the team which I was responsible for and led was look for operations, like make sure the product is up and running 24/7 and react to any defects, any tickets, etc.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
It
more
was
from
a
the operation side.
it was a larger organization, right?
Yes, it was larger.
Yeah, sounds like
correct.
it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Fernanda, any good examples of success?
No, well, I work with UX designers that were really good, really know the users or the customers. But the model broke with integration with development teams. And sometimes it broke with the funding models. So unfortunately, I don't have those good stories to tell beginning to end.
But thank you for mentioning your exciting collaboration with UX designers.
Mhm.
I really would like to provide all emotional support for Amruta so that she gets reinforced in how UX design is so exciting and so important on a product team. It is really such a great discipline, isn't it, Brett?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. All right. Now I think a little fun. Wanted to wrap up the session today with I think one of the things that makes all of this difficult, which is everyone. I think especially agile, right? I've been in quite a few, many organizations that say we're an agile team. We operate agile and it's completely different every place. Like it's like the realities of like how people translate it into their business. So I think there's just a lot of stuff out there where these kind of perceptions and misconceptions can make building great products challenging. And the first thing I wanted to share was, I don't know if all of you have seen this on LinkedIn or shared before, but this is, I would argue, contributing to the problem. Because I feel like when I look at this, I think from some perspectives, I'm like, oh, I can see where they're coming from. Like Agile, you're iterating on something to finally get to the right thing. But at the same time, I would argue if your goal, you're going to get to a car, and you start with a skateboard, you really did not understand anything about the customer and what they needed and what they wanted. So like that doesn't make any sense. The AI, starting with the space car for Homer Simpson, like most AI I interact with today would come pretty close to the final solution if you give it the right input. So that doesn't make a ton of sense. But again, I think, and then people see the waterfall, even, I've worked in waterfall organizations and built great things. Yes, you are kind of not getting to customer value to the end, but it almost seems like, well, if you're going to build a car, is the first thing you're going to build? Probably not. You're going to build like a frame or a chassis. Like the whole thing makes me angry. But again, I think this is contributing to why every organization kind of approaches agile differently, different approaches to just development in general, development being really far removed from customers, all these things, I think, and this is something that I feel like kind of perpetrates or perpetuates that notion. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was that, like, kind of truth is situational. And I think everyone here has been in situations where things that the product theory of product operating model doesn't always ring true in certain situations. So one of the things that product operating model speaks very much against is feature factories are bad, right? If you're in the business of just delivering features, you're doing something wrong. And I will say that's not always true. I've been in companies where the product is competing against other products. It is not as well funded. It is not as feature rich as these other products. So you are not able to compete with those products. They've already figured it out. You don't need to necessarily reinvent the wheel. You do need to be able to get some features out the door quickly. Sometimes using that kind of approach and delivering things quickly without a ton of getting stuff done, there are times where you need to do that. Or this notion that only great product ideas can come from this empowered product team, not true. I've worked with people completely outside the development world, and because they are not tainted or have preconceived notions about things, can come up with really pure, great solutions. And if it's lucky enough, it's something that can get developed, even better. And then last but not least, kind of this notion of like anything less than continuous delivery of customer value is a failure. There's a lot of things out there that say, oh, if you're not continuously delivering, you're failing. The product operating model they talk about, you need to be delivering every 2 week sprint, you need to be delivering value for the customer. I will tell you, and we had multiple people talk about regulated industries where it just isn't that easy. And there's also things on the technical side where, hey, this is really complicated. It's going to take a while to fully QA it, to fully test it, to fully ensure that it's not going to do any retroactive damage to existing pieces of this product. Like, it's not always that easy. So I think with any kind of theory, it's really all about the situation and applying those theories and rules and ideas in a way that's going to work for where you are and where that business is. Because I do think there's tons and tons of value in the product operating model. I also would say there's many, many times where it is not the right approach, whether it's because of the business, because of the situation, or any of that above. Any questions? I know we're close to time, so I want to be mindful of that, but any questions on anything I shared? Anyone have anything else they'd like to share?
So while again people are thinking, I would like to welcome Pedro. Pedro joined a little bit later, but we also know each other from previous events, and I'm so happy you could make it this evening. Thanks for joining, Pedro.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to this awesome group. Yes, I was gonna add earlier, like a good experience that I had with a team that I used to work with. We were making a phone app for off-roading people that like the bikes jumping mountains and making tricks in the air. And it was kind of cool. It was my first experience working with a team, a developing team, and having like a product manager. Um, it was good. We didn't get to meet the customer personally, but we got a lot of feedback from the customer on how she loved every little bit that we were making. And but yeah, I come from an agile team. I didn't know nothing about it. I thought I knew by watching videos, and it took me to join this team, and and it was a fantastic experience.
Cool. Thank you, Pedro. I see RJ just posted, I used to work in the off-roading industry. You guys should connect with each other. Find
We are.
the... you are
We
connected
are.
already? Oh, that's cool.
Oh yeah, I connected with RJ a while ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Practically best friends now, right?
there you go. Hey, say you walk and I have to go walk too.
Yeah, so Pedro, you obviously have a skill of making friends. That's a great skill to have. Mhm.
That's his hobby.
Yes,
That's
it
the hobby.
seems. Yeah, yeah, it's a good skill to have.
Yeah, thank you. So
Thank-
another question I have, and I don't feel comfortable calling Amruta again, but because we spoke the other day, Amruta is kind of on the fence between UX design and Scrum Master, and we have plenty of Scrum Masters here. What is, and you see how excited I am about UX design, but who can talk with on behalf of Scrum Master? Why is being a Scrum Master exciting? Can someone talk on behalf of a Scrum Master? Why is it so exciting?
Because that's where the product development takes place within the team. You get the team organized, or the team organizes itself. You get to provide a sense of leadership, or how do I say, a sense of instruction to this is how we could do things in a kind of agile way or a traditional way, and what are we actually going to do to make this happen? So the Scrum Master becomes a combination of a coach and a catalyst to enable the software team to focus on getting the product backlog done, making sure the definition of ready is accepted, and the definition of done is done. So I don't know anything more exciting in the software world than that, and actually coding up the right answer for the right product. How's that?
What do you think, Amruta?
Yeah, that's very helpful for me actually, because it all relates user experience is more of like emotional intelligence, I would say. But at the same time, yeah, we have to understand the customer needs and pain points, and collaborating with the team and being a cross-functional team makes a lot of sense, because at the end we have to achieve that goal not only for just achieving itself, but it is for customer for whom we are building the product or a service. So I would say that makes me lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, guys. Anyone else? Any last things anyone would likes to share? Other than that, I see the guys are exchanging messages, but you
I'll
can
say thank
continue
you to
offline.
everyone. Thanks for taking the time tonight and listening to me and collaborating and discussing, which was really the goal, is getting all of you talking more than me. So I appreciate all of that.
Thank you so much, Brett. How did you like, guys? Was it interesting, entertaining? Anything new you learned? Thank you so much, guys, for being here on this meeting.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the sharing all the knowledge.
Thank you, guys.
My pleasure.
Okay. Hope to
Thank
see
you.
everyone again in our next meeting. Bye,
Have a-
guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.